Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being with me here today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Brooke Tomasetti, who is a personal finance coach that I have recently met and have just really enjoyed having some wonderful conversations about finances and money mindset and all kinds of things. And so I invited her to be with us here today on the Life Makeovers podcast because, as I'm sure you've experienced in your life, a lot of us have money stuff going on in our heads and in our lives. And Brooke is here to give us insight and support around that area of our lives. So thank you, Brooke, for being here. And please tell us more about yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. This is my favorite topic. And as you mentioned, my name is Brooke. I'm a financial coach at my own business, Midlife Mentor. And I also work in financial services, in financial education at Carbon Collective. They're a small investment brokerage. And yeah, the way that I kind of got to starting my own business was I've really always been a personal finance nerd, which I feel like is very rare, right? Finance is usually a topic that people try to avoid. So I'm sure you don't hear that very often.
No, I don't. I don't know if I've ever talked to a financial nerd before. I love it. Oh gosh. Yeah. What's that like when it's a subject people typically avoid, or I find it's such a taboo topic. It seems like people are more willing to talk about even like sex or death or you name it. What is it about money that people avoid the topic as much as possible?
Yeah, I've delved into this quite a bit, just with my work. And what I've found that it kind of comes down to is that most of us were not taught about personal finance growing up or in school. So a lot of us just never had that strong mentor or financial background, financial foundations. And I think this is where a lot of the discomfort around discussing money comes from, right? And because of this like deep lack of financial literacy and lack of openness, right, on these topics from a really young age, and sometimes for most of our lives, unless we're really seeking out that information, it leads to a lot of fear and shame, right? So two really difficult and uncomfortable emotions.
Sure. Oh, yes. And as you know, I work with women in midlife all the time, and money is a hot topic. And I think you're right. There's a lot of fear and shame around it. And I know now for my generation, like I was a child growing up in the 70s, and common messages about money during that time, common things you heard parents say is money doesn't grow on trees, and you can work your fingers to the bone and never get anywhere. I heard that a lot, things like that planted seeds in my brain of, oh my gosh, this is this awful monster. Yeah. I grew up with what I call a scarcity mindset, and I think I'm still working on shifting that. But I work with that with clients too all the time, and you do as well, right? An abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality.
Yeah, it's very common. I love the money doesn't grow on trees because I have I have my clients write down things that they picked up, just phrases from digging back when they were growing up, and that one comes up a lot. I had that one growing up in my household as well. Also, just this like not having enough, like, oh, we can't afford it.
Can't afford it. Never
Very common.
Can't afford it. Can't afford it. Yep. We do it.
Yeah.
Can't afford it. That's too much money. How dare you even ask for that? Right? Just, yeah. Ooh. Yeah. This is a weird little story. So I I was spending time with a cousin of mine and her stepmom. And we had to run an errand to like I think it was Kmart at the time, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Kmart's, but it's like it's
Yeah.
an old version of Target or Walmart or whatever. And it was just a little routine shopping day for the stepmother. So she had, just basic things on her list. But for some reason, we walked by the game and toy section, and my cousin said, "Oh, this game looks really fun. I'd love to have that." And the stepmom looked at it and she goes, "Oh, yeah." And she looked at the price and she goes, "I guess that's not too bad." And she just threw it in her cart. And I was standing there like mesmerized, because things like that would only show up at my house on Christmas or birthdays. And it would have been almost, and I'm not picking on my parents here at all, they worked so hard, they really did. And they were loving people. And that I would have never received or asked for something like that. That seemed lavish and luxurious to me at that time, that a $15 board game would just go into the cart on a day when you're just picking up soap. You know what I mean? So there's a money story there, right? That's what you're talking about, that people are growing up with, and starts a foundation of money mindset that's hard later on when they're trying to run their finances.
Yeah. And isn't it so funny how these like seemingly random experiences really stick in our minds? Like you can probably remember what that toy looked like, where you were.
Yep. I can see the stepmother like standing in front of me. And I didn't even know this woman. I mean, I rarely spent time with her, yeah, it really stuck. It made a big impression on me.
I do find too, because I think it is important to reflect back on those really early experiences, and also like the emotions that come with those, and then take a look at your current financial life and your life in general, right? And see kind of how those experiences ended up playing out in your own life. It's really interesting because a lot of folks I work with, either they kind of mimic parts of, their parents' money mindset and the way that they used money and things like that. But then you also have folks who kind of went in the opposite direction, right? Where maybe if their parents spent very abundantly, et cetera, they end up being more scarcity mindset and more protective over their spending and their finances. So I think that's an important piece to reflect on too.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're encouraging us to kind of tap into some of our early money memories. Yes. And then notice how our lives may be paralleling or responding to that memory. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage people to write it down. Okay. So if you journal, or if you're not much of a writer, even just like get your phone out and like record voice or text. I find it can be really helpful to just kind of put it down somewhere. Ideally somewhere you can kind of reflect back to, right? Maybe once you have a plan in place, or once you've maybe done some mindset work, to just take a look back and say, okay, this is how I was feeling a year ago. And these are my reflections that I had growing up. And kind of here's how I've slowly started this journey of like progressing to a new mindset and like rewriting my own money story and my own mindset there. So I think writing it down can be like really add to the power there.
Yeah. So for the example I shared, I'm processing this through in my mind as we're talking, to kind of illustrate for the audience. So what I was experiencing in that moment was, wow, that challenges the belief I've witnessed of you only get special things on special occasions. If you don't need something, you don't put it in the cart. You save it for gifts or presents or holidays or whatever, right? So I know as an adult, I used to struggle with, oh, I just want to buy that book for $15, or I just want to pick up that CD, back when CDs were actually a thing. Yeah. I want to spend $10 and get my favorite artist's latest CD. I would hesitate because I didn't need it, even though I had the money for it. Like I wasn't, going into debt to buy myself a CD. So I think that's that's the translation of that early experience, right? And I've had to rewrite that story. So it's like it is okay to buy things just for fun sometimes. Like you don't have to
Mhm.
wait just for Mother's Day or whatever.
Yeah, I think that contrast can be really powerful, right? Like seeing like, oh, wait, it doesn't have to be like this. Like I never even conceptualized that. I've had similar experiences in my life. I similarly have kind of gone through with more of a scarcity mindset. In the last 10 years, I've put in some work to kind of break that open a little bit, right? And lean deeper into that abundance mindset, which I feel like has become a little bit of a buzzword recently, but like it really is so important because I'd say 80% of the women I work with have a scarcity mindset. It's interesting because the men do not. So I do find that difference. And
Men have it. You're kidding. Why don't they? Because they
well,
were raised same parents as their sisters or whatever. So what's the difference?
yeah, so I do read into a little bit about like because I have them each do journal prompts, right? And where they are reflecting on those early experiences. And I do find that oftentimes the men are able to find more of a mentor in their life, whether it's a father figure or somebody in college or a professor or an early boss at their internship, something like that, who started to talk to them about money. And a lot of times women don't have that. And I think it's sad because a lot of women are like, we're just given a different playbook, right? It's like, okay, you're going to, at least my generation was like, you're going to go to college and graduate, and then you're going to get married and have kids, and you might have a career, but like you'll probably be climbing the corporate ladder and it's going to
Right.
be really hard
Bad
to
at your
balance.
job or you're bad at being a mother. Take your pick, right? Is
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
but you can't have it all.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it is so funny how like money is that one kind of missing piece to me, right? It's like it's that one thing that opening up our education to it can truly like change your life.
Wow. So if someone knows they're having what we call a scarcity money mindset, like what, or a scarcity mindset, what would be just one practical first um, movement you think they could make toward changing that story in their mind about money?
Yeah, absolutely. I do find that the first small step is to really get clarity on where you really are,
Okay.
right? Because our mindset can be really different from our actual numbers sometimes, a
Yeah.
lot of times, right?
Yes.
So,
Like you hear that people win the lottery, right? And they
mhm,
win gazillions of dollars and then they're broke in 5 years. Like I can't remember, is it 75%? Maybe maybe you don't. It's okay if you don't know, but I know the percentage is super
mhm,
high of people who win all these millions of dollars and then it's gone in a few years.
mhm.
And that is, I think, is it not because of their scarcity mindset? They don't know how to handle wealth. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think, yeah, and I think it's a lot of different factors. I think it's scarcity mindset combined with the fact that if we don't know how to manage a $40,000 a year salary, we're not going to know how to manage $2 million. It's not going to suddenly solve all of our financial
Transformation.
issues,
Yeah,
right?
got it. Wow. Okay, so what about, in our relationships? I mean, money is a huge part, especially of partnerships, marriages, and parents, children. I mean, all many relationships. But how do we create safe, open communication in our relationships about money?
Yeah, this is a
Let's,
really
Brooke.
good. You're right.
You just tell us right now how to do
Solve
that.
all of our. I was told one time that all problems are communication problems, and I find that to be true also from a money financial standpoint as well. Uh, I also think too, with creating this open dialogue around finances, it's not just with your partner or people in your life, it's also with yourself, right? Like a lot of times
Oh,
we, you're like nodding. Yep.
yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yes, our relationship with ourselves and how we talk to ourselves about it. Okay. Keep going. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, of course. I do think opening up this dialogue, a really good first step is to give yourself some dedicated time. So let's kind of start from the place of maybe I'm like new to this, like opening this up. So I would try 1 hour, right? Block out the time, sit down and really reflect on what it is you want your life to look like. And it sounds funny, right? Because this is um, really like a financial reflection, but I find it really difficult to know what steps to take and what conversations we want to have around money if we don't first recognize like what it is we want our life to look like. What are those dreams that we have? And I know, Cindy, you do a ton of work on this with your clients. So I know you're very familiar with this. It's probably like one of the earlier things that you also work with your clients on.
Exactly, because if you don't know what you want, you cannot go get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's finances, material things, a job, a relationship. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even with my clients who do have spouses who they are doing financial planning with or sharing finances with, I actually like to do this separately first. So if you can get them on board to also set aside that 1 hour and you can independently reflect. I I know we're going back to the journal prompts. I do think those can be really powerful. I'll share a couple that I like to use, but also there's no need to write. Like if you're not one to put pen to paper, you can record however you want to do it. But one exercise I like to do is visualize your ideal day, right? So describe your ideal day in as much detail as possible, right? Like where are you? Who are you spending the most time with? What time are you waking up? What are you eating? How do you feel going about this day? So kind of as much detail as possible, right, about that. Another question I like to ask too is if you had 1 year to go learn, do whatever, wherever you wanted, what would that look like?
Oh, that's a real dream question, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you had 1 year to go learn or experience anything, what would it be? Or where would it be? How did you say that? Say it again.
Yeah. If you had 1 year to go or learn or do whatever, wherever you wanted, what would that look like?
And no financial limitation in that dreaming, right?
No financial limitation. I like to start with removing finances as a barrier to really get the juices flowing. I find that people sometimes have difficulty with this. Either they can paint it really clearly, but that's for like maybe 5-10% of folks. And the rest of us have a harder time like really dreaming big. So I do find that removing those limitations, at least to start, can be helpful.
Well, yes. I mean, I think of financial response. I've heard from a lot of people when I said, well, what are your financial goals? You know, when
Mm.
I'm doing the coaching, is they'll say, well, I just want to get by. It's like,
Mm.
really? That's it? I think, that's like, I think, oh, please, let's set the standard higher. I mean, we don't have to all own 50 yachts, but could we not just get by? That sounds so scary, kind of almost, or just, like we're living by a thread, which a lot of people are just getting by, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that a lot too, Cindy. It's a lot of times my job is taking them from a place of security and comfort, right? Because a lot of times they're already there, but they have these fears. So it's going from like a security and comfort, goal-oriented mindset to like freedom and work optional type of mindset, which is so different.
Optional. Oh, I love that phrase. I mean, I love my work, but someday I want work to be optional. Yes.
Yes, the option to, right? And I love a lot of folks in their middle age, right? They make a shift. Maybe they start a business or they can have the flexibility to do a big career change. And they're like, I love my job. I want to do this forever. And my response to that is fantastic. You can do that as long as you want, but let's make it so that you have the option, right? More options. Work is way more fun when you don't need to do it.
Yes, exactly. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Work optional. Wow, I love that phrase. Yeah. Okay. And so you encourage, if we're talking about couples, for example, you encourage each one to individually do these prompts or think through these ideas of their ideal day and what they do in the next year. And then how do they come together to communicate about it? Just sharing their dreams or visions, or what? What is that what breaks open the conversation about money, you think, the best?
Yeah, absolutely. I find that couples who like first dream together, they're a lot better at planning together because they
Mm.
understand this vision that they each have, and some parts are going to be individual, right? Like one
Yes.
partner might really want to learn pottery, right? They
Mm-hmm.
might want to really do a deep dive on that, and the other partner can say, great, like let's support that, like let's like set aside the money for those classes, etc. But then together they might also be saving to finish out their basement, right? Or whatever it is that they hope to do over the next 10, 20 years together. So yeah, step one, do it separately, dream separately, and then bring it together and have an open conversation about dreams. You don't have to, I would recommend not bringing in money yet, just talking about that vision and what each of you guys wrote and why.
Mm. And I don't know if this is a fair question to ask you on the spot like this, but what about couples entering into a marriage or whatever? Because I've heard that money is still the number one cause of divorce in America. I don't know if that's true, but I have heard that a lot over the years. And so I'm wondering what we can do in preparation for a stronger, longer commitment where they don't bump up against money conflicts so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is indeed a stat. I believe money is the number one cause of divorce, and also I think contention in a lot of relationships, right? But yeah, specifically with when you're getting ready to make that big of a commitment with a partner, and a lot of folks when they get married, they join finances,
Yes.
whether they're doing it consciously or just in the eyes of the legal bodies that govern us, right? They're really
Yeah.
becoming a financial partnership. And a lot of folks don't look at marriage as a financial partnership, but it truly is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, to answer your question, a lot of reason why, at least in my experience with my clients and in my life with my friends, things like that, the reason why partnerships, marriages have these disagreements around finances is because they don't talk about it,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of something that there might be an event or something that causes an argument or a discussion about something specific, but they're not really talking about like the root of like finances. They're not really reviewing things together. So it's going to sound like, oh yeah, this is obvious, but having this habit, this routine in place where you're sitting down together, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right? Maybe if you've been married for 20, 30 years and it's been a while that you both have sat down and looked at everything together, right? Openly had a conversation, you might want to put in a little more time up front. But again, I do find that taking even 45 minutes a month, right? So my partner and I, we Thursday evening, that's our date night. And the last Thursday of the month, that's the date where we're like, okay, after dinner, we're going to kind of sit down and discuss. We're going to do dinner at home and we're going to like sit down and look at our numbers together. And my partner and I have some joint finances because we just bought a house together. But in our case, we kind of do a combination where we each have our own accounts, our own investment accounts, things like that. And then we also have the joint account for the house, right? And there's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm just kind of sharing because even if you do not have fully joint finances, if
Mm-hmm.
you have a partner, right, a life partner, I find it's really helpful, really important to set aside that time. And it can be as simple as 45 minutes a month.
Yeah. And everybody's got 45 minutes. If y'all don't have 45 minutes to sit down with your partner about and talk about this, I don't even know what to say to you, right? That is simple. That is doable. Yeah, a lot of my clientele, of course, they're in the middle of their lives. So they are in one or two of those scenarios where they've been with the same person now 20, 30 years. And I will admit, sometimes I hear, oh, yeah, I don't know anything about the finances. I just leave that to him and my eyes, I
Mm-hmm.
just, oh gosh. And, but whatever works for people. But also many of them are in second marriages, including myself. Like now a lot of people in midlife are divorcing or they're widowed, and then they're moving into a second partnership or marriage. And believe me, money is a hot topic when you've already had, you've already built some of your wealth, each of you.
Mm.
It may be similar, it may be very different. You both have had finances in place for decades without the other. And that's a whole nother ball game. And so communication is critical, very, very critical. Um, so, how do we manage that stage or that scenario, do you think? And how is it different than when 20 somethings are starting off together, for example, who haven't built their wealth yet, haven't, and are going to do that? They're going to grow it together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I do find that the conversation feels much more pressing for folks who are entering second marriages because, as you mentioned, they've kind of gone through it, right? They've gone through that separation of everything, of assets, versus the couple who's maybe 25, 29,
Right.
this is their first marriage.
Have nothing, quote unquote, nothing yet. Right.
Yes, it's still equally important, right? In both cases, equally
Yes.
important, hugely important, right? The 29-year-olds, they're entering the 2 decades that are going to be some of their potentially highest earning years. They're most likely going to be buying a house in the next,
Yeah.
5 to 15 years. So it's an equally important conversation, regardless. It's just that um, the couple who's 29 might just put less emphasis on it. They might choose to not get a prenup, right? We see that a lot. But then let's say they have kids, the kids leave and they decide, hey, this isn't working for us anymore. We're deciding to separate, right? So it's still important. So I do like to point that out, right? Because for folks entering second marriages, they're like, okay, now is my chance to whatever. But for anybody listening who is ever considering marriage, it's always going to be important, right? There's always going to be the potential, right, for that kind of separation and that kind of division of assets. So if you can determine as a partnership what's going to happen in the worst case scenarios, then I like to think about it as you're just protecting each other, right? So,
yes, we went through this recently, Ed and I, because we got married in this calendar year, and we talked about prenups, and all that. We went through all of that, and it was distressing to talk about the possibility of divorce when we were approaching marriage. Like that was, that's kind of upsetting. It feels so negative. And so I had to shift in my mind, this is a loving act. We are loving and caring about each other so much that we're willing to have these conversations. And of course, what will happen when we're going to die for sure, but because we both have children, we both have assets, we both
right.
have wills, we both have blah, 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 blah. So we had to talk about divorce and death to feel really financially prepared for marriage in this second chapter of our lives. And so, but it was a bit grueling, I think, but so worth it because we're clear. It's like the plans are in place. We know what's going to happen in any scenario, and we have agreed to it, and so we know where we stand, which is really that's part of financial freedom. That's part of feeling secure.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of healthy approach, right?
Totally. And I wish I had an antidote to say, all right, take this and it's going to make this conversation easy, like rainbows and butterflies. But I think the way that you phrased it in terms of, I love you so much that I want to have this conversation so that we can decide what this looks like for us and protect each other. I love the way that you phrased that. I think that's really the best mindset that you can go into a conversation like that. And right before you get married is probably the time when you're, most likely to have that kind of strength to do that, right? And face that together.
Yeah. So if we could all in our lives individually and in our relationships, like, make money, kind of give it less power, emotional power in our lives, even though it's we need money in the earthly experience we're having to function in the world. But if we can get not loaded up so much emotionally, right, and be more of a practical, I don't know if that's the word, logical about it, practical about it. I mean, you know, and educate ourselves so we can make informed decisions. I'm kind of rolling around here. I guess what I'm trying to say is if we could give it less emotional charge, then maybe we could build our money confidence more and make better decisions. I don't know. What do you, are you
Yeah.
following me while I'm circling around, spinning around
I
and
think
trying
I
to,
got what you're putting down, Cindy. So the way that I like, I think what you're saying, and the way that I also like to look at money and what I tell people is that it's simply a tool, right?
yeah,
It's just a tool, just like if you're going out to work in your garden, right? And you've got a rake, it's just a tool. We're not going to get emotional about it. There's really there's no need for that. It's just a tool, and it's something that we can use to make our lives better, right? It has a job to do. We put that rake to work in the garden just like we put our dollars to work, right? We're investing it, we're saving it, we're putting it towards these exciting goals. We're using it to have new experiences, right? To get closer with our family, things like that. So, yeah, money is just a tool.
I love that. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for there. What can we call money instead of just it being this scary, overwhelming topic or need in our lives? And yeah, it's a tool. It's a means to an end. Um, yeah, that's great. So if we could come to conversations with ourselves and with our in our relationships as, what do you want to do with this tool in your life? What do
Mm-hmm.
you want to do with this tool in your life? How should we use this tool in our relationship together? Or how, yeah, that kind of takes the nightmare out of it, right?
Yeah, the pressure and the
Sure.
icky fears about it.
The
Mm-hmm.
shame and the fear. And yeah, why tie emotion to money at all? Can we, is that realistic to drop? I don't know. Maybe if we do the work, we can really dial that down. I don't know. I mean, because money is not love, money is not joy, money is not shame, money is not guilt. Money is money. Money is a tool to pay our utility bills and go out to eat or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always come back to like when I've had times in my life where I started getting a lot of fear around money, right? So I had a rental property that I was also living in, and renting it out, and I had a big insurance claim come through from a tenant, right? So it felt really scary. Like it was my first big, like homeowners insurance claim, and my insurance, the legal team, right, had to like fight this claim. And it's a long process if anybody's ever been through. I mean, it's just like a divorce, right? It's like a long legal process.
Yuck.
So I had a lot of fears coming up, right? It ended up being fine, thankfully. But at the time when I got that letter, I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to lose the house? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I failed, all of these emotions, all of these fears.
Yes.
And what I had to keep coming back to was, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? Let's
Mm,
say that this bankrupts me, right? We're like, for some reason, insurance doesn't cover it. It completely bankrupts me, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, I still have my partner who I love.
mm,
I have my family. I'm really lucky, right? My parents are alive and I can visit them. Like worst case scenario, I'm sure I could stay with them for a few weeks and get back up on my feet. It's like I still have my job. I work remote and I'm really grateful for that. Right. And I have my sisters and a lot of people who love me in my life. And I just kept reminding myself of like, okay, this is what's really important. And like money is just money. Yes, I worked really hard to get where I was at the time. And I was really proud of my property. But I was like, you know what? If I lost that, it's just that. It's just an asset. It's just money. And like I still have all these things in my life.
I love that. So when we have fear, if people have fear about their financial future or their financial now for whatever reason, to shift into thinking of what they know for sure, what their foundation really is in their lives, what gives them true meaning in their lives, and that kind of thing to kind of help them try to relax about whatever's going on financially. And oh, there was something else you said, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to, put another point in there about that. What was it? I'm sorry, it left me. But I love that, really thinking about what's important really at the end of the day, right? Oh, I know what you said. You said your assets are your family, your job you still had, or whatever. And so when I got divorced 11 and a half years ago, I didn't make anywhere near the money that my husband at the time was making.
Mhm.
And one of my worries was, will I make it financially without him? Right? Will I be okay? And how I dialogued with myself was, I believe in me. Like, I am my best asset. I'm
Mm,
educated myself. I've trained myself. I know what I'm doing. I can make money. I can get whatever job I need to. I'm willing to work whatever job I need to make it. I'm going to bet on myself, more than a system or somebody else's money
yeah.
or, whatever. And so anything that we can do, right, to really decrease fear around money, increase our own empowerment, our own confidence is also a wonderful way to navigate any financial scenario, correct?
Right. That's right. Yeah. And a lot of times, like our setbacks can actually turn into our greatest comebacks, right? What feels like a setback. And a lot of times, divorce is not a setback, right? It can actually be a very positive thing in people's lives. I feel like it usually is, right? But at the time, it might feel like a setback, right?
Sure. Yes, of
But
course.
those like really difficult things, like I would tell myself too, I was like, okay, let's say that this all happens. And then I was like, wait, I'm going to be the greatest financial coach ever, having gone through this crazy experience and dug myself out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to be able to help so many more people, right? I'm still the same person who's learning from this, and I'm going to come out of this and be the best version of myself.
Yes. And isn't that the lovely part of life? Because I feel the same way about my profession. Yes, I have the professional training, tons of experience, and I have been through my own midlife transformation, my
Mm.
own deep depths of despair, and crawled myself out of it. I did the work, and that's what I help women do now. So, and those ugly, what we might call my less than graceful moments, what I don't like the word mistakes, but what people might label my mistakes in my life or whatever, are my absolute
Mm.
gifts to share with people going through similar circumstances now. And so take heart, everyone. If you're, whatever you're going through is going to be, when you get out on the other side of it, it's going to be a gift to yourself, to others. And that can be true of financial mess as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We're stronger than we think, and like you can overcome really any financial setback, right? Because money, like we talked about, it's simply a tool. So
Wow. So is there anything else that you have noticed that might be particularly um, on point right now, where we're at in 2023 economically, or is there anything that you'd love to say in general, just as we're wrapping things up here?
yeah, I mean, I think that this is a really interesting time for like our audience members, who most of them likely are in their 40s, 50s, maybe 60s too. um, I think it's a great time to kind of take that step back and do the reflecting that we were speaking about earlier in the episode, because for most of us, there are certain things in our life where we would like to spend more time on them, and dedicate like more of our money to, right? So whether that's a cause you care about, right? Maybe financial or time, you want to dedicate more of that to. Or maybe it's, okay, the mortgage rates are really high. So we were planning on downsizing our house where we raised our kids, but we're not going to do that anymore. Right? Because our rate's at 3.2% or whatever it is.
Right.
So, but maybe it's looking at the other opportunities there, right? So maybe you have room for a shed in the backyard that you can have somebody refinish and turn it into like this beautiful oasis. Maybe you do a hobby or a craft or something you can do out there, right? Or maybe you want to make that 3-season porch finally, or finish a basement, right? Whatever it is, you could, sit down and look at your finances and have that conversation with yourself or with your partner, whoever you own with, and decide like, okay, how can we make this like our best environment for us for the next 10, 20 plus years? So there's a lot of things like that, right? I think health too is another really great example, top of mind for a lot of folks. I have had clients who wanted to shift some of their income to prioritize health and wellness, but not just like a gym membership, right? They wanted to sit down and research, like, how can I 10x this, right? So they were like buying a new mattress and those soft, natural, like bamboo sheets so they could sleep better and improve their sleep quality, right? They worked with a nutritionist, they learned a new sport, things like that. So I'd say like recommend like having some fun with it and being flexible, right? Like we talked about like the current interest rate environment, right? There's certain external factors that are going to come into play in your decisions, but I don't think that should stop us from like having fun with it in our decision making.
Well, and of course, I love the discussion of people investing in their own wellness and whatever form that takes. I have those conversations with people all the time about working with a coach like me or a coach like you. It's like you're investing in yourself, in your joy, in your future, in your confidence, in your ability to create the life you actually want. I mean, that's a real investment. Like we buy cars to drive down the road that start declining, their value declines the
Right.
second we take them off the parking lot. And we don't blink about that.
Yep.
Nobody blinks about that. They go, I got to have a car. But investing in their own personal development or their own financial well-being, their mindset, oh my gosh, people have to convince themselves. Like I used to have to convince myself to buy the
Yes.
book off the shelf when I was in my 30s or whenever that was. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it's yes, people, please put your dollars where it's going to count for the rest of your lives. And when you invest in your health, in your wellness, in your joy, in your feeling of security, you're setting your stage for a lovely continuation in your life, feeling really, really good, which is, if we don't feel good, what's the point, right? We want to feel
Absolutely.
in every way. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could talk to you all day. But I won't. Don't worry. I won't try to. I'll let you go here, Brooke. But tell us where should people reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation with you and check on your resources and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. The most direct way would be just via email. And the best email address for that would be Brooke. That's Brooke with an E at moneylifementor.com. Okay. Or you can go ahead to my website, moneylifementor.com.
moneylifementor.com or Brooke, BROOKE at moneylifementor.com as the email direct.
That's right.
Address. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Brooke. I appreciate you and all your wisdom and how you've really helped us be a little less afraid and a little more empowered around our finances. I hope all of you listening today feel blessed by this conversation and will really take heart to some of the suggestions that Brooke made to really get more in touch with your own vision for your life and what would be your ideal day, what would be the best year, and tap into some of those old memories with your money that might be causing you that fear or hesitation, that's keeping you from really your full expression and joy around and security around your finances. So anyway, everybody, thanks for being here with us, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.